Yesterday, the suspended Deputy National Commissioner, Lieutenant General Shadrack Sibiya, continued giving his fifth day of testimony at the Madlanga Commission. Now, Sibiya has refuted any links to alleged cartel member Vusimuzi cat Matlala and alleged corruption claims made against him by some of the Commission's witnesses. Meanwhile, a political fixer, Brown Mogotsi, also appeared before Parliament Ad Hoc Committee about his testimony regarding the alleged political interference and his dealings in criminal intelligence. Now, to talk to us more about yesterday's proceedings, we're joined virtually now by Mike Bolhuis, who's a Specialised Security and Investigations expert. Mike, good to have you with us again. Welcome to Morning Live.
Thank you. Thank you for the opportunity.
So let's start first with the Madlanga Commission, General Shadrack Sibiya. He was meant to be giving testimony for 4 days, dragged on to a fifth, and we understand he may be coming back. What did you make of his testimony?
Well, he has absolutely dragged himself just deeper and deeper down, and by now there's enough evidence. I mean, remember, everything that has been said is recorded. All the statements that they have given is against them. So the commission and the hearings and whatever is to follow, the further investigations, and is ready, in my opinion, can go for prosecution and he could face jail time. The constant lying, the constant actually identifying his character and not stepping up and being honest, straightforward. As I've said before, I mean, if you're a general and you hear all these things about you and all these allegations, and you react this way, and you give all this information, you're not being transparent or honest, because it just doesn't ring true. There's no, at any time that anybody would say, you know what, now you're talking the truth. What he was supposed to do, as well as all these other people that was questioned, is to stand up and say, listen, here I am, I'll give my full cooperation. And afterwards, I'll even give you a forensic polygraph to prove that I'm talking the truth. And I'm here to help and assist and to correct what I've done wrong. If I've taken money, I'll give it back. If I've made mistakes, I'll apologize and put it right. Whatever I will do for the public, for this nation, for the government, in order to protect and serve and be a general, to be a policeman, is to take responsibility for everything you've done right, but also for what you've done wrong.
And speaking of taking responsibility, some of the things that perhaps General Sibiya was a bit evasive on was where he claimed not to know, for example, the criminal history of one of the people who attended the ad hoc committee hearings with him, someone whom he knows, someone who works in close proximity to him. So you take that, you take what happened at his son's engagement party, where he again claimed that, you know, even though witness F's exchanges via WhatsApp were very clear about what was going on, he tried to maneuver out of that, trying to make other claims of why things had unfolded the way they did. And did you feel that the commissioners were buying into that?
I don't feel, I know. You know, these things clearly shows me that there is a deliberate attitude, as what any criminal would do, as to try and get out of the hot seat. So they're not going to stand up. And when look, we're talking about Sibiya here, but I'm talking about every one of them. None of them are going to stand up and take responsibility. It's the narrative in South Africa, drag it out. Go through hearings, go through investigations. Maybe somewhere along the line we can bribe an investigating officer or one of the people on the committees or hearings. Maybe somebody dies. Maybe somebody, just gives me a pardon. It's been the narrative in our country that you don't get a general in jail, or a political official, or a municipality official, or any government or authority official in this level into jail. I mean, there are those that have been found guilty and still walking outside. So they rely on that. They rely on the basis of he says, she says, and they're going to drag it out as much as they can, abuse the system, as far as they can and try and get and squirm themselves out of it. In the meantime, the money has been spent. And meantime, the damage has been done and is damaging daily even more, and is causing, the complete damage to our nation because of these hearings is enormous. The effect that it has on the normal human being, the people in the public. They are living in constant uncertainty and fear. And just seeing what our police force is doing and who is running it and how it's being run, and the politicians as well. So this has an enormous effect on everybody in South Africa. So yes, they are identifying themselves completely as being criminals, and they're going to do whatever it takes to get out of this.
And if we pivot to what's been happening at Parliament's Ad Hoc Committee, and we saw Brown Mogotsi finally making his appearance there, and again, a very tough time for him there yesterday, where he was in part, he was forced to admit or retract his statement that the Amazulu king is, and as well as General Mkhwanazi, he had earlier alleged that they were both CIA agents, and it got to a point yesterday where he retracted and apologized to them for making those statements.
Brian Makotzi, and I hope he listens to this, is probably the one that has identified him as himself as the worst and constant liar that I've basically seen in all these hearings. If he was Pinocchio, his nose would have been growing from Pretoria or Johannesburg to Cape Town. He is just constantly just putting his foot in his mouth and stepping on it, and just he's so identified that he's not going to get out of this. He's rotten to the core. He's a criminal.
Be that as it may, this is a man who had access to some of our country's top leaders, to some of the top police officers in this country, and in one way or another managed to play them, so to speak. And then we heard yesterday, through some very decisive questioning, that the parliamentarians were not convinced that Brown Mogotsi is, in fact, a contact agent, as he puts out. They asked him questions about his training. They asked him whether he knew of certain places where all agents would go to for some level of training. He was asked about the exact level of training that he received, all which were very unsatisfactorily answered.
He's not an agent. He's an absolute fool. But this is what makes the difference. It's the money. Remember, organized crime will operate with the best of the police, the best in government, the best in municipalities, the best in business, the best hitmans, the best gangs, and the best guys like Makotzi that can absolutely BS their way through everything and has the connections, and he has a role to play, and he's played that role, and it's all about money. But the stupidity that we see in this organized crime, which unfortunately has worked in this country, is enormous. I mean, if you're an agent, a real agent, he wouldn't have been alive by now. The very people that he would have supposed to be an agent for would have taken him out the day he's exposed. That's real agents. Real agents you never hear of. You would always hear the information afterwards, but they will never be identified. Very seldom. That's a real agent. He doesn't even know what an agent is. I wonder if he even realizes what he's saying. So that's why I say the stupidity amongst all these that have presented themselves in this hearing is just, I wish I was involved in these hearings. I wish I was called to give an explanation of how organized crime worked in detail. I would have loved to do that. I wish I was questioned about all these criminals, and I wish I had the chance to confront all these criminals. Because I really care about this country. I really care, and I would really like to make that difference.
you're not before the Ad Hoc Committee or before the Madlanga Commission, but you're on Morning Live, so maybe you can just give us, just a little bit of an insight into how this works, because we've been hearing about the Big Five. We've heard about Kat Matlala, we've heard about TK Molefe. Another name has now come up in the form of Stephen Mutsumi, and yesterday, through some of the messages via WhatsApp with Witness F, or Sergeant Nkosi, as he's now been named, his name came up again. So, talk to us about how all of this works and who are the other members of the Big Five?
Well, it's a lengthy answer, but I have to give it short and sweet. Organized crime relies on contacts. It relies on people in power. Sorry. Organized crime cannot work if you use a captain or a constable. You need generals. Organized crime works when you have serious government officials. And at this point, I want to say there's no way, because this is the questions I would ask the president, that he did not know of this in the last 10 years. There's no way. Remember, the president is a person that's in a way a go-to guy. And it's known in any country, there are a line of people that constantly would give him information, whether it's assumptions, hearsay, or factual information, he gets it. And he has a line of people that tells him of all the Skinner stories everywhere, all the rumors, stories. There is no way that a president of this country, especially Cyril Ramaphosa, which is a clever guy, that did not know what was going on. So that would be a question that I would ask him. And if he says, I didn't know, I would question him about that, and it would just doesn't sound true. But if he says he knew, then I would ask him, why hasn't he done anything about this? Why hasn't he interfered? He's the president. I mean, he called for all of this now. Why didn't he, since inception, since the day that this stuck its neck out, did something about it? But the Big Five and all these guys are contact guys that has real power. And money makes the world go round for them. And here's the thing. They have a reputation that if you fiddle or mess with our finances or with information, because that's why you will be killed. If you've got too much information and you could be a problem in exposure, you will be killed or extremely intimidated. The same if you fiddle with the money. You will be killed or extremely intimidated. We've seen this. So that fear is being spread as a message, and definite messages has been given over these years that they become untouchable. So nobody does anything about it. So the good generals stand aside because of fear, and they don't have the assistance, they don't have the infrastructure as to go against. But here's the thing, we're looking at about 20, 30 top people here, not 5, that's more, with underlings as well, that's running this country. I mean...
I'll tell you what, Mike, we need more time because, as you said, you need time to unpack that for us, and we'll try and find the time to do just that. But for now, we'll have to leave it there. Mike Bolhuis, always a pleasure. Thanks so much, Specialized Security and Investigations expert, talking to us about yesterday's proceedings at Madlanga Commission and at the Ad Hoc Committee.